Greetings. You're listening to Rebels Remembered, featuring Caitlin DeFord and Kelsey DeFord.
Greetings, travelers from across the galaxy. I am Caitlin.
I am Kelsey.
And this is Rebels Remembered. And this week we are discussing Season 2, Episode 13, The Protector of Concord Dawn. This episode aired January 27th, 2016. It was written by two writers. We have Henry Gilroy and Kevin Hops, and directed by Brad Rao. Synopsis reads, with the Empire closing in, the Rebels need new hyperspace routes. They find a shortcut near the Concord Dawn system, but must first gain permission from its leader. Before we get into this, when this episode starts, they're still trying to find other routes because the Empire is beefing up their security. I think it was kind of calling back to the troubles they were having in Wings of the Master, I think.
Yeah, and also it's almost like establishing that they're still kind of hanging out around Lothal.
Yeah.
When earlier they were kind of wanting to distance themselves from Lothal. I think even Sato, either Sato or Rex says that we need that system to go in and out of Lothal and other systems in the Outer Rim. But yeah. Got some trivia here. This comes from StarWars.com. So Fen Rao, who we see in this episode, his last name, of course, comes from Brad Rao, who directed this episode. Originally, the first part of his name was actually going to be Glenn. This was pitched because the concept artist that works for Lucasfilm is named Chris Glenn. So his last name's Glenn. Brad Rao's last name is Rao. So I don't know how it went from Glenn Rao to Fen Rao, but just a little bit of some trivia there. The interaction between Kanan and Fen Rao is staged to seem like a Western. I think we'll get to it, like how it's specifically the shots.
I thought that when rewatching this.
You can kind of hear some music stings that kind of call back to Westerns in like a Western saloon type setting, which Kanan was originally called like the Space Cowboy, so it's calling back to that. We'll get to this, but Rao and Skull Squadron save Depa and Kanan, on Magito, and that's found in the Greg Weisman Kanan comic that we talked about. If you're looking at it in volumes, it's volume 10, if you want to be that nerdy about it. If you buy the whole thing, it's
somewhere in
there. Short battle somewhere in there. But yeah, check that out if you haven't. Another thing, Concord Dawn was actually first established in the Legends storytelling, so I'm assuming Legends, when Disney bought the property, the IP, Legends refers to any sort of novel or comic book that wasn't either created by Lucas or, signed off on him, or I'm sure he had to sign off on him, but it first appeared there. It later appeared first on screen. It's not seen, but it is mentioned. So I think this is in season 4 of the Clone Wars, where there's a whole arc. It starts with the episode Deception. I remember the name of that episode. Obi-Wan disguises himself as a bounty hunter named Rako Hardeen. He's actually an actual person, but it's mentioned that he's from Concord Dawn. So that's the first time you hear that name, but you don't see it physically. If that makes sense.
Gotcha. So the episode starts out with the Ghost Crew meeting with, like we said, Sato and Rex. They're discussing options for a new hyperspace route to the Lothal sector. Sabine recommends Concord Dawn, a Mandalorian colony not yet under the control of the Empire. She says.
Yeah.
Rex says they're known for its elite warriors who fought in the Clone Wars, but they're still curious who they're loyal to. So I think it sets up the tone of this age of the Empire, in that you don't really know
people's allegiances.
Yeah,
which can be, you're obviously taking a risk by even announcing that you're in the rebellion, because the people that you're talking to either maybe completely neutral, which fine, they can just kind of brush it off, in the rebellion, so they could be your friends, yay, or for the Empire, which, as we see later, doesn't work out if it's like that.
So they agree to pay the Mandalorians a visit, and Hera, she's obviously going to lead this mission, and Sabine's going to tag along with her. And Hera kind of goes into it with, we can talk to them, but I think that's
very
just her.
Diplomatic.
Yeah.
It might be her being a little bit optimistic, which I think even Sabine and Sato say, these people have known war their entire lives, their whole Mandalore is full of history of just fighting and battle. So, while I think for Hera it's something that it's optimistic for her, it's like almost like her not understanding the culture of Mandalore and how they might not be as optimistic
Friendly,
about
yeah.
want to be friends for any reason.
It's interesting that they chose, or Sabine recommended this particular route, because it makes you wonder, there's got to be another route, right?
Yeah, Sabine's the one that actually suggests Concord Dawn. But then she also mentions that, yes, we don't know who they are, but they play by their own rules. So they're kind of like morally gray, we think, but we're not 100% sure. And I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Hera was like, oh, we're gonna know only by going there and talking to them.
Yeah,
Which
that's true.
Yeah.
So she leads the Phoenix Squadron, and they're in A-Wings. They arrive in Concord on space, but they're quickly held by Fenn Rau, who reveals to be the protector of Concord Dawn. So he's the big guy in charge.
He's the big banana.
She says they come in peace and request safe passage, but when she reveals that she represents the rebellion, Fenn Rau ends the conversation. Out here, I act in the name of the Empire, he says, and opens fire. But I will say, to give her credit, you can kind of see her hesitating. Like,
she does hesitate.
We're from the rebellion, like, you know.
She mentions we're for Concord Dawn. Pause. And the rebellion. Yeah.
So they open fire, and of course they take out quite a lot of, I don't know how many.
A-Wings. Is this the first time we see A-Wings in battle, or is that just me?
No, we've seen them before now. Well, in battle. I feel like I've seen them blow up a lot. That sounds terrible,
but... yeah. It might have been the blockade.
Okay,
there might have
been
some of them during Wings of the Master.
So Hera tells everybody to retreat. And she tells Sabine, of course, I'll be right behind you, which at this point, that line, I'll be right behind you, if you're a Rebels fan, you know that.
If you're a Star Wars fan.
A Star Wars fan, too. Like, it's kind of like, I have a bad feeling about this, but it's like, you know, something bad's about to happen.
To whoever said said line. I will say, though, very courageous of Hera to, like, divert the ship's attention to focus on her so the rest of them can get away. Because I think, gosh, they destroyed quite a bit of...
Yeah, and Hera tells them to jump away, and they're like, we can't, they're firing at us, and if we jump, you know, I think Sabine says we'll just be shattered to pieces.
Well, another thing is that we have to remember Fenn Rau, I think Rex briefly mentions this. He was, for, like, I mentioned Skull Squadron that's mentioned later, but he was it for the clone troopers. He trained clones how to fly a ship. So he's not, like...
Yeah, that's true.
Not an experience at piloting and shooting and all that kind of stuff. So I think Hera's a very capable pilot, but you've got him and just kind of outnumbered.
Yeah, outnumbered her, I think. Just before Hera makes the jump, Rau and his Mandalorians blast her fighter. Hera and Sabine do make it back to the command ship, but her A-Wing is destroyed and she is unresponsive. Now, when I first saw this episode, and, you know, Sabine makes it back, and they're all asking, where's Hera? And she's like, well, she was right behind me. All of a sudden, she comes in, which, credit to her, falling apart and still making the jump. Just seeing that ship being so wrecked and damaged, and her just kind of laying in there, I was like...
But also seeing, like... Sorry, Space Married. Seeing Kanan react is heartbreaking, too, because he's trying to, like, talk to her, and she can't, because she's unconscious.
Yeah. So they, you know, I guess, I don't want to say doctor her, but medbay, whatever you call
medical droids.
Yeah, medical droids. I was going to say, like, the doctor robot, but that's not the right term.
Doctor robot.
They stabilize her, but Sabine is angry. I mean, rightfully so. I'm sorry. I'm putting Sabine on this. She apologizes to Hera, saying that they're going to answer for this. Which is understandable. I just had to say that.
Yeah. I think anger is... in this instance, it makes sense. Because we also have to remember that Sabine is 16?
Yeah.
So,
She's young, so.
I mean, Hera was kind of like a mother figure to her, and seeing someone that you love, and then seeing the people that caused it.
Yeah.
And, yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
But even after this, after she is, she's stable, she's still, she's still injured, I guess. They're still trying to figure out how to go about. I'm like, I would just give up at this point. Like, we're not gonna even talk to them anymore. It's over. We're not even gonna try it. So they decided to well, I can't remember who suggested. I can't remember if it was Kanan or Rex that says we could infiltrate the base.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, what do you mean infiltrate the base? Like, go in undetected and try to negotiate. But I'm sorry, at this point, see, I'm showing my true colors. Like,
dark side coming out.
Yeah, to me at this point, there is no negotiation. They're on the side of the Empire. They clearly made their intentions known by blowing up half your freaking fleet, and you're still wanting to negotiate this, which I don't know about that. I would just give up, but I mean, I guess the rebellion doesn't do that.
So you wouldn't have retaliated. You would just gave up.
No, I would we're looking elsewhere.
Yeah.
That's what I would have done.
I mean, it's a big galaxy,
Yeah.
There could have been other areas but yeah, I don't know.
And Kanan kind of steps up and was like, "Well, I'll go and try to talk to him." Which is
didn't Sabine somehow it's really quick. She mentions that she had their coordinates somehow. Like she knows where their base is at.
Oh yeah, I think it's on one of the moons. Yeah, I do think it's interesting that Kanan's like, "Well, I'll go talk to them," which is interesting for him. I think because I just wouldn't after what they did to Hera.
Mm-hmm.
And of course Sabine's shocked by this. She's like, "Kanan, they're with the Empire. Like, what are we doing?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, I understand her too. And of course, Zeb and Ezra and her we're a team. We have to go, with you or whatever. And of course, he doesn't want to endanger another person. So he's like, "Well, I'll just take Chopper." And I don't want to say he's disposable, but so he takes the Phantom, and he's heading toward Concord Dawn, and apparently he missed the fact that Sabine had stowed away on the Phantom.
Yeah, that's just kind of odd, but she said you must be really, really distracted to not notice that I had stowed away, because I think you would have been able to sense it through the Force or something. But, I mean, distracted, now what does that mean? The fact that, one, Hera's laid up, we don't know if she's going to make it, but also, a lot of things going in his mind of, how do I go about talking to the people that almost killed her and killed other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely a lot on your mind.
Kind of like when you're getting ready for a job interview and oh, how do I approach this? What do I say?
It's like going into a lion's den.
Yeah. Oh, while Sato ordered him to destroy the Mandalorian fighters, Kanan wants to complete Hera's goal and recruit the Mandalorians to join the rebellion. Yeah, this is the part where Sabine's like, "Kanan, no."
They almost killed her. What are you doing? Yeah.
Which I think is kind of sweet and noble of Kanan to be like, "Well, he's doing what Hera wanted," which is
initially,
which is sweet. But I honestly would have. They arrive at the third moon, and we got this really interesting part where it's also just interesting that we had this interesting team up with Kanan and Sabine.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever seen Kanan and Sabine before teaming up like that, but I also think season 2 is kind of where they started experimenting with who goes on missions with who and who gets their own mission, and yeah. But it's interesting to see them because you've got a Jedi and a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, there's this really cool, I love the way the base is lit and stuff, and they're on that platform or whatever, and they, whatever that thing is called that Sabine pulls down and looks through it, and they see Fenn Rau with an Imperial officer paying him for his services. See, at this point, I'm like, no, it's over. He just got paid for blowing us up. And the officer tells him, if you see them, around, let us know, And he does this really weird, half-ass salute. Oh, excuse me. Salute that's kind of like, whatever. I just got money.
It was animated, kind of funky. But, yeah, also, I like how Sabine responds to that, your plan's not looking so great, because literally just told their leader to report if we're here.
Mm-hmm. So Kanan makes a deal with her. He says that he's going to attempt to recruit him. But if that doesn't work, then she can blow up their fighters.
Yeah.
So Kanan heads inside. He's in this really weird, like, I don't want to say saloon.
It looks like a saloon.
It
to
does.
me, but their drinks are in little bowls for whatever reason. I don't know.
Maybe it's soup or something. So while he does that, Sabine's going around and planting her little
Explosives underneath the ships. Which, again, I like how Fan Rao and Kanan meet. Again, it's very Western. Like, it's it's Fan Rao sitting at the bar, so this little place, and then the camera pans, and you just see Kanan in the doorway.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes in, and you even have the little string music that's common in Westerns. And then...
I heard that, yeah.
When he tells him that he knows of him, and then he just kind of puts his lightsaber on the table. To me, that's almost a very Western idea of... It's almost like, hey, I come in peace back in the days. Here's my gun on the table.
Yeah, I got that vibe too. And Kanan actually reveals to us and the audience that, which we already know that he fought in the Clone Wars. But he reveals that in the Battle of Megiddo, Rao and his squadron saved Kanan's life and his master's life. Mm-hmm. And he tells him that you gave me a chance to live that day, now I'd like to return the favor. So while they're negotiating, we still have Sabine kind of doing her thing. But then she bangs her head with her, like, on underneath one of the ships or whatever, which to me is kind of like a interesting mistake that Sabine typically wouldn't make. But I think because she's so emotionally invested in what happened to Hera, that's probably why she goofed, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Unless it was her plan. Yeah, it could have been her plan all along.
I don't know.
Yeah. So soon they discover her, and then they surround her, and I love how they have this interaction with. They don't think she's Mandalorian.
They have the same reaction to most Mandalorians that I used to. When I would see one, I'd be like, "Oh, bounty hunter," just because the armor and I guess because of Boba. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I would just see a Mandalorian with the armor and just think automatically it's a bounty hunter.
Same. It's interesting though. You get a hint of like I don't know much about Mandalore, which I'm glad you're here. But they have their own culture. They're their own people. Like it's a whole thing. I'm sure that there's pages and pages of stuff you can read about Mandalore and how they operate.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, where'd you get that armor? And like, who are you or whatever? And she says that she's from Clan Ren, which Ren is her last name.
Yeah.
House Vizsla. And then she says she invokes the Mandalorian code to seek justice through single combat. So apparently they have codes for things.
I mean, they're a warrior people, but they do have sort of an honor system in a way, which is weird because they're still a warring people. Yeah. As a Clone Wars person, I'm not a Clone Wars person, let me rephrase it. As someone who had seen the Shadow Collective, who had seen Pre-Vizsla rise to power in the Clone Wars, I saw that scene, and the only time I'd ever heard that, and I could be completely wrong, the only time I ever heard that honor code used was when Maul challenged Pre-Vizsla to the death. Spoiler alert, he ends up killing him.
Oh, okay.
So when I heard that, I was like, she doing one now? Like, like, you don't, in Mandalore, like, I think even Fan Rao says, it's like, you're not going to leave unless she kills me or I kill her. Like, that's just how it's going to be. Of course, still being Fanzalupo, but...
Well, see, me not knowing anything about codes, I don't know nothing about Vizsla. I've heard of the guy a lot. Apparently he's a big deal. But even, you know, I probably should have done my research, but, like, even when I first saw this, she was talking about this code, I was like, oh, okay, it's like a duel. That's what I got.
It is a duel. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's just a duel to the death. Yeah.
Gotcha. So House Vizsla. I don't want to go into, like, a rabbit hole. We may cut all this out. But, like, so Clan Ren I understand because that's her last name. So her clan, her family is Ren. Why is it House Vizsla? And why did they say she's Death Watch? What does that mean?
Okay, so Pre-Vizsla was a dude who pretended to be a great governor for Concordia, which is a moon around Mandalore, pretending to support Duchess Satine, who is the Duchess, the ruler of Mandalore at the time, and she wanted to seek this idea of pacifism
Oh, good luck.
on Mandalore.
Yeah, good luck with that.
And he was totally against that. So what he did was he created Death Watch, which was a terrorist organization that wanted to overthrow her government because they were not about to be pacifist.
So what you're saying, what you just revealed to me, is that her family...
If they are in house, though, so after the whole Mandalore gets all screwed up because they have clans, which is based on kind of your last name and your heritage, your house is what political faction you align with.
Okay, so what you're saying is she said that they call her a traitor too, and she says my mother was, but I'm not. Like, does that mean her mother worked with...
Her mother either worked with him or supported his idea to overthrow the current government.
Oh, okay.
Which, by the way, Bo-Katan was also in Death Watch. Until Maul got involved, and she was like, I'm out, deuces. This is not what I
did not know that. Okay, well, that's interesting. Interesting little backstory on Yeah, I was just curious
But
about
yeah,
this,
certain Mandalorians that didn't align with him, you're a traitor because you're trying to overthrow that government.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So, Kanan and Rao are still trying to, like... He's still trying to, like, convince him, which I feel so bad for Kanan because it's kind of cut short. I feel like he had him.
Yeah.
If he just talked to him a little bit more.
Yeah.
But Sabine had to...
I think it's funny. They're just kind of sitting there shooting the shit or whatever. And the guy goes in and is like, hey, we've got an intruder. He's like, I got him under control, this Jedi right here. Like, Jedi? No, there's this other person.
No, there's like a person that wants to kill you out here.
Yeah.
Like, you probably want to look at this. So Fenn Rau steps outside and he welcomes the challenge because he's a Mandalore. He's not going to back down from that. I don't think you can once it's been invoked. Of course, Kanan's like trying to tell Sabine not to kill this dude because it's not what Hera would have wanted, trying to convince her. And this whole time I'm thinking, I don't know what Sabine's going to do.
I don't either. I mean, when I first watched this and even when I rewatched it, I was like, what happens? I know she doesn't die. I know he doesn't die, but what happens?
Yeah. And she says, you have to trust me. So I think that part I was like, okay, does she have something hidden up her sleeve? And of course, when they have they're staring each other down, they have their, getting their weapons. That's also a Western feel to it, which I liked. Of course, she's faster than him, which I thought was interesting.
I thought that was interesting, too.
And I love how she says there are alternatives to killing, and she throws her helmet back on her head. That was really cool.
That was pretty dope, yeah.
And then she ignites her explosives, and all the ships are just wrecked. Of course, this one, Kanan leaps into action, he ignites his lightsaber, and he runs to get her away from all the stuff that just blew up. And of course, Rao's taken off at this point.
Yeah.
He's out. And I think Kanan's like, they're hiding behind this wall because now all these Mandalorians are shooting at them and everything. They go inside the canteen and lift the table up and all that stuff. And he has this conversation with Sabine where he's like, we should go after him. He's like, seriously? Like, Kanan, like, dude, let him go.
Well, also, we don't know where Rao is going.
Yeah.
He might be reporting where the fleet came
that's
from.
what he said,
Might be reporting that there's rebels here. We don't know. So it's in their best interest to go after him as well. I'm sure Kanan's got another motive of, yes, that's what Hera wanted to try to align him with the rebellion, but also, like, it's in their best interest to not let him leave.
Yeah, I remember now. But I know why they had to get him now, because Sabine mentions that I planted all the explosives except the one on Fenn Rau's ship because I got caught before I could plant it.
Yeah.
So they know he's going to try to either contact the Empire or find where the fleet's located and just decimate them. So, yeah, that makes sense. So he flies off, and Kanan jumps onto his TIE fighter as it's flying
God
upwards.
love him. Like,
I mean, he's really trolling this dude. And then he, like, strikes the engine, and then he kind of hops up where Fenn Rau can see him.
almost gets barbecued on the back end of that engine, too.
Yeah.
Lord.
And I love that part because Fenn Rau's just like... Because I know he's a Mandalorian, but it's kind of like, how far are you people willing to go? Like, to,
Well, even when Kanan is talking to him in the little saloon scene, And he's asking him why he, at the end of the day, the Empire doesn't care about anybody. You're going to lose unless we all stand together. And he says, well, you guys don't have a chance. Basically, he says, you guys don't have Snowball's chance because you don't have the resources. You don't have the experience that they have. The entire time, though, he's patting that thing of credits. And I just want to, strangle him in that moment.
Oh, he was, yeah.
Yeah, so, but, yeah, I think that seeing Kanan do all this stuff, he's very determined. I mean, obviously.
And that's when he tells him, still think we can't win, which is a really cool line.
Yeah.
And he, stabs the controls and cuts them open, then cuts off, the cockpit that he's sitting in.
Yeah.
And, of course, Sabine comes in and... Well, actually, first she grabs him and punches him, which I loved. And then Sabine comes in with the Phantom, and they're able to get Rao out of there and leave. So here's a part that I thought was interesting. So they're in the Phantom, they're flying away, and he kind of wakes up or whatever, and he gets a little thing on his comm link. And Sabine's like, don't let him answer it, because he's a prisoner, and we can't let him answer it. And Kanan just kind of looks at him, he's like, you can answer it. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he tells them that to stand down, and the rebels are allowed to go through Concord Dawn, which to me, why would he... Oh, wait, is that answered later?
I think Kanan kind of answers it when Sabine has the same kind of question. He tells him that if it gets let out that he is missing, and I don't know how it works. It sounds like he's an Imperial envoy for Concord Dawn, or ambassador, if you want to call it that, in the not Republic. If he's missing, they're going to send out a lot more Imperial patrols, which, if they're doing shady crap on Concord, they don't want Imperials messing around with that. It's almost like, I feel like Fen Rao and Concord Dawn support the Imperials because, one, it's easier to do that than fight them, but also it's sort of a beneficial kind of... It's not like... I don't know, it might be. I don't want to lump all Mandos together, but I don't think they believe in, the Imperial philosophy of colonizing other worlds and things like that, even though they have control of Mandalore right now. I think it's just... You benefit us the most in this instance, and so... I think that's why he's like, we'll just let them do whatever they want, because the alternative is having the Empire be more involved in our business of what's happening in Concord Dawn. But to me, it did seem a little easy. Yeah. A little oh, that was easy. You just gotta go ahead and just allow them through.
Which, I think we see him... I know we see him in season 3, I believe. Yeah. So we get to kind of see a little bit of progression with his character. But yeah, this moment was a little bit too easy for me, like you were saying. It was just too big of a switch.
But then Kanan welcomes Rao to the rebellion, and then he has to... Okay, he says that in one scene. They finally get back to the fleet, and he says, right now we are only friends because we have to be. But I think sums up what I just talked about. Right now, you're the only part you're benefiting me because it benefits me.
It makes me wonder if the rebellion was giving him credits, if he would be on their side. Give me more money and I'll join.
Which it sounds very bounty hunter-y.
It does.
It is bounty hunter-y, but I don't want to say all Mandalorians are bounty hunters, but
they're an interesting bunch of people. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
But yeah, I was gonna say I thought I didn't like Fen Rao, and then you meet Gar Saxon, and he's worse. Than he is.
True, yeah. So they lead him away because of course he's a jerkwad when he walks away, or is being led away. And it's revealed that Hera's awake.
Hera's alive.
She's alive, and she wants to see Kanan and Sabine. She's surprised that they're taken a prisoner. And Sabine replies that they're not at war with the Protectors. Killing them would not have been just. And she tells her that you're sounding more like a Jedi than a Mandalorian. And she has that sweet moment with, well, I guess I just been raised right. She kind of looks at Kanan and then looks at her. And it's kind of like, I mean, they did. I think they have become, space family. They have become the parental figures in the Ghost Crew. Especially with Ezra and her, because they're the youngest.
Yeah, for sure. Very sweet line at the end there.
What did you rate this episode?
I think I gave it a 7. Maybe a 6. I have a 6.
I have a 7.
But since we're talking about it, you know what?
I did have an 8, but I marked it out and
to-
put 7 because I actually enjoyed it. I really
The
liked the episode.
pacing was really good in this episode.
Yeah, I agree.
Normally it's been like back and forth, kind of, which can drag the pacing out. But the pacing was really good in this episode. Any issues, concerns that you had with the episode, or what was your?
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the, like you said, the juxtaposition between a Jedi and a Mandalorian, but also learning more about Mandalorians, especially in the Age of the Empire.
Yeah, that's true.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
And also getting a little bit more backstory on Sabine, a little bit in that
We
little
get pieces
of it.
Yeah.
The only thing I would ding it on would be his quick switch, but now that you've explained it to me, it makes sense why he would.
It makes sense why he would not report him being captured.
Yeah.
But I just still have a problem with him just allowing them to go free.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the part I kind of have issues with, I guess.
Because he tells him don't mention them too, which I thought was kind of weird.
That was kind of...
Like, dude, just tell him. I know there's a whole community of Star Wars fans that are really into Mandalorians. I am not an expert on them. I barely know anything. I know, this series definitely made me more aware of them and more wanting to learn more about them.
Mm-hmm.